All right, you're in bed. You've brushed your teeth with minty, fluoride-approved paste, checked your phone one last time for that dopamine hit of doom scrolling, and now you're here, lying on a mattress that costs more than an 1800s doctor's annual salary, wrapped in sheets that aren't soaked in blood, sweat, or laudanum vomit. Congratulations. You live in the modern world, and it's about to get much harder to appreciate that soft pillow under your head, because tonight we're going somewhere darker, somewhere that smells faintly of whiskey, pus, and the crushed dreams of 1,000 coughing men in corsets. You, my friend, are going to sleep through one of the worst places you could ever wake up. 19th century American medicine. There's no anesthesia, no germ theory, no licensing. Your doctor might be a college dropout with a bone saw and a strong stomach, or a guy who read one book, opened a storefront, and now calls himself a professor of electromagnetical fluids. Either way, your odds of survival? Not great. So get comfortable, because the year is 1847 and you've just been born. The good news, you made it out of the womb alive. The bad news, the midwife just cut your umbilical cord with a pair of sewing scissors she also uses to trim the family dog. She wipes them on her apron, same one she uses for laundry day, bread baking, and field dressing chickens. It's fine. You're crying. That's a good sign. Your lungs work. Your mother, on the other hand, is not doing so well. She's pale, feverish, and bleeding. Why? Well, we haven't figured out hand washing yet. See, in many cities, the same medical student who just finished dissecting a corpse at the local anatomy lab also walks directly into the maternity ward to deliver babies. No gloves, no soap, just the faint scent of decay under the fingernails and a can-do attitude. So your mother, bless her, might already be dying of something called childbed fever. It's basically sepsis, but we don't call it that yet. We just say, she got unlucky. The fact that the hospital kills more women than it saves isn't a reason to stop sending women there. It's a reason to pray harder. You're placed in a wooden crib lined with straw, swaddled in cloth that's been reused for years, and you cry yourself to sleep as your mother shivers in a puddle of her own blood. Welcome to life in the 1800s America, and this is just your birth. You make it through infancy. Impressive. Most don't. Infant mortality rates are sky high. Teething alone could kill you. Not because it's deadly, but because the local apothecary gives your desperate mother a bottle of Mrs. Winslow's soothing syrup, a miraculous tonic made of morphine, alcohol, and sometimes a pinch of mercury. You stop crying because you've entered a light coma. Your mother is grateful. She finally sleeps. You drift into toddlerhood under the loving eye of home remedies. Got a fever? They tie a potato around your neck. Cough? A spoonful of turpentine. Worms? Time for a tobacco enema. That's right. Blown straight up the rear with a rubber hose and a lot of misplaced confidence. By the time you're 5, you've been bled, blistered, and purged more times than you can count. You're still alive, mostly because your body is too stubborn to quit. Now let's fast forward. You're 13. A teenager, if that term existed yet. You live in a 2-room house with 6 other people, a chamber pot, and 0 privacy. One of your siblings has a hacking cough. They say it's just consumption. No big deal. Everybody has it. You're told to keep eating, keep working. You do both. But you've noticed the blood on your sibling's pillow every morning, the way their skin is waxy and pale, the way they cough up thick, wet sounds like they're drowning in their own lungs. No one calls a doctor, because 1, he lives 5 miles away, and 2, he charges in cash, whiskey, or pork. You have none. Instead, the family boils onions, wraps your sibling in flannel, puts mustard on their chest. Someone suggests arsenic. Another says to try opium. Everyone agrees on prayer. Eventually, they die in the middle of the night. You wrap the body in a sheet. You bury them yourself. You never forget the sound of dirt hitting cloth. And life goes on. You're 17 now. Your hands are already calloused, your back already aching, and your teeth? Let's not talk about your teeth. They've been fighting a quiet battle with time, sugar, and neglect, and they are losing. Badly. You wake up one morning with a throbbing in your jaw. Not just a dull ache. This is a full body kind of pain. The kind that makes your ears ring and your vision blur. The side of your face is swollen, and you can barely open your mouth. What do? You don't call a dentist. Because in the 1840s America, dentists aren't really a thing. There are barbers, sure, and blacksmiths. And a guy named Frank, who once pulled a tooth from a pig and now considers himself something of an expert. So, you walk, because there's no carriage, and even if there were, you can't afford the horse, to the nearest barber surgeon. Yes, that's a real job. He sharpens razors, drains boils, and occasionally takes out a molar or two, all while offering a mean sideburn trim. You explain your issue through clenched teeth. He nods solemnly, wipes his hands on a towel that's definitely seen better days, and tells you to sit down and bite on this being a strip of leather, a hunk of wood, or whatever's closest. There is no anesthesia. Not unless you count whiskey, which he generously offers in the form of one deep swig from a bottle that hasn't been cleaned since the Jackson administration. Then he pulls out the tool. It's called a dental key. It looks like a corkscrew married a torture device. He wedges it between your rotting tooth and your swollen gums, says something like, "Hold still now," and starts to twist. The pain is bright, electric, and deeply personal. You scream, bite your tongue, and thrash against the chair. The tooth doesn't come out clean. It snaps in half. He keeps going. You hear a crack, maybe from your jaw. Eventually, something gives way, and your tooth, what's left of it, comes out in pieces. He drops it into a tin bowl like it's nothing. You stagger home with a mouth full of blood, a spinning headache, and the haunting realization that it could have been worse. Sometimes they break the wrong tooth. Sometimes they pull the whole jaw. This is healthcare. You want to lie down, but your bed is a rope-strung cot stuffed with horsehair and mildew. Your pillow smells like someone else's sweat. It probably is. You close your eyes and think about the taste of blood and copper and wood. You survive the night. Barely. Now you're 20. You've just gotten married, because back then, 20 is middle-aged. Your spouse is nice enough. No one married for love. You married for land or family obligation, or because you needed help raising the goats and bearing the siblings who didn't make it. And now your spouse is pregnant. Congratulations. You're about to witness another miracle of 19th century medicine, childbirth. You fetch the midwife. She's not trained exactly, but she's seen things. She carries a bag filled with cloth, string, whiskey, and a curved knife that used to be for chickens. She's delivered babies in barns, under trees, and once during a house fire. The birth takes hours, then days. Your spouse is moaning, sweating, and drifting in and out of consciousness. The baby is sideways. The midwife tries everything. Push, roll, scream, nothing. So she makes a choice. Out comes the knife. She cuts. There's blood. More than you thought a person could bleed and still breathe. The baby comes out. Silent. Blue. The midwife slaps it hard until it cries. Your spouse does not. You wrap the body in linen and dig another grave. You cry or you don't. There's no time for mourning. You have to keep going. Because now you're a single parent with a newborn, and the next plague is already on its way. The year is 1851. You are 27. You've survived smallpox, barely. Your neighbor didn't. Neither did his wife, or his daughter, or the mailman. You're not sure who gave it to whom, because honestly, it doesn't matter anymore. What matters is the pockmarks. All over your face, your arms, your chest. You don't look like yourself anymore. You avoid mirrors. Your skin feels like it belongs to someone else. Someone rougher, more brittle. Someone who saw too much and didn't sleep through most of it. But congratulations, you're now immune. A real survivor. They don't throw parades for that sort of thing, though. Mostly, people just avoid eye contact with your scars and talk about you in low voices when they think you're not listening. Your child is 6 now, and you're determined to keep them alive, which, statistically speaking, is optimistic. So you take precautions. You boil your water when you have time. You use vinegar on the wooden floors. You make herbal tonics that smell like despair and taste like boiled sadness. And still, your kid gets sick. Always sick. Rashes, fevers, coughs that last for weeks, teeth that won't come in right, worms, ear infections, and something no one can name but everyone agrees is probably serious. You don't call a doctor. You can't afford one. Instead, you try something new, something fashionable. You visit a phrenologist. Yes, a man who reads bumps on people's heads and claims he can diagnose illnesses, criminal tendencies, and romantic compatibility based on the shape of your skull. He runs his fingers across your kid's scalp, nods like he's hearing voices from beyond, and tells you your child's bile is unbalanced and their temperament is melancholic. Then he prescribes castor oil, lots of it, and cold baths, and a poultice made from crushed elderberries and hope. You go home and do it. Because what else is there? Meanwhile, your neighbor down the road has a son who broke his leg. It got infected. The doctor came, eventually, and sawed it off on the kitchen table. No anesthesia, just a bottle of whiskey, a leather strap to bite, and a few strong men to hold him down. He didn't scream after the first minute, not because it stopped hurting, but because he passed out. The doctor tossed the leg outside into the snow. The dogs dragged it away before nightfall. So yes, you try elderberries, because at least they don't come with screaming and bone dust. Your kid survives, for now. But now you have a problem. You have a rash. It's spreading. You're tired all the time. Your joints ache. Your gums are bleeding, and your breath smells like copper. You try not to worry. Worrying never helps. You visit the apothecary. He smiles with yellow teeth and offers you a miracle cure. It's made of mercury. Yes, mercury. The stuff they use in thermometers today? Back then, it was medicine. Glorious, silvery, poisonous medicine. You rub it into your skin. You swallow it in pills. You apply it in paste form to the sores. And for a while, you feel better. Kind of. Then your teeth start to fall out. One by one. No warning. Just a crack, a wobble, and then there's a molar sitting on your tongue like a tiny white ghost. Your breath turns foul. Your hands tremble. Your skin peels. You're not healing. You're dissolving. But people tell you to keep going. It's the only thing that's ever worked. You wonder how much of you will be left before the cure kills the disease, or just kills you. You lie awake at night. Your bed feels harder. The wind outside feels colder. You think of the mercury bottle on the table and the church bell that rang this morning for someone else who didn't make it. Sleep doesn't come easily. And this is just your late 20s. You're 35 now. You've outlived 3 siblings, 2 children, and 1 president, probably. You're not entirely sure who's president anymore. News travels slowly, and honestly, it doesn't change anything for you. Your daily life is still dirt, sweat, noise, blood, and silence, all tangled together like you're fraying shoelaces. Your joints ache constantly. You don't know why. Maybe it's from hauling water, chopping wood, digging graves, or just existing. But you've heard of something new, something promising. It's called electric therapy. Yes, electricity. The same mysterious force that makes frogs twitch when you jab them with copper rods. Except now, someone's figured out how to sell it as medicine. For $10, a fortune, you can be strapped to a chair, wired up like a science fair project, and mildly electrocuted back to health. You travel to a man's parlor in town. He has a beard that suggests intelligence and breath that suggests he hasn't brushed since the War of 1812. You sit down. He attaches small metal paddles to your temples, your wrists, and your back. He cranks a wheel. The machine hums. Then it buzzes. Then it kicks. A bolt shoots through your spine. Your muscles seize. You bite your tongue so hard you taste iron. He nods approvingly. That means it's working. You twitch like a trout on a riverbank. After 5 minutes of low-grade electrocution, he declares you revitalized. You can't feel your hands, or your feet, or anything that isn't vibrating. But sure, you're revitalized. You walk home sideways. You don't sleep that night. Your muscles are still humming like a church bell on Easter Sunday. The pain returns the next day. Worse, deeper. Like your bones are angry you ever left the house. So you try another popular remedy. Bleeding. Not metaphorically, not spiritually, literally. You get a bowl, a razor, a friend who's willing to cut you without asking questions. They slice your forearm just enough to get the blood flowing. You watch it drip into the bowl. You feel faint, light, dizzy, almost spiritual. People swear by this. They say it rebalances the humors, draws out the bad blood, clears the mind. You pass out, hit your head on the floor, wake up an hour later surrounded by worried faces and a bowl full of your own life. You sit up. Everything hurts. Your vision swims. But the bleeding? It worked. Not because you feel better, but because now you have a headache so bad it's distracting you from your arthritis. Success. The local newspaper runs an ad for a miracle tonic. It cures everything. Weakness, nervousness, melancholy, baldness, bad luck, and spiritual decay. You buy a bottle. It tastes like burnt licorice, rusty nails, and regret. You later learn it contains alcohol, cocaine, and opium. A lovely cocktail for someone whose liver is already hanging on by a thread. But it makes you feel something. Warmth, buzzing, distance. You stare at the wall for an hour and forget your back hurts. That night, you sleep. Hard. The kind of sleep where dreams don't exist. In the morning, You try to remember what you did yesterday. You're not entirely sure, but your hands are shaking, your mouth is dry, and you already want more of the tonic. You don't know the word for addicted, but your body does. Your teeth are nearly gone. The last one snapped off while you were chewing a piece of boiled beef. Now every bite is a gamble between hunger and pain. You hear about a dentist in New York who uses nitrous oxide, laughing gas, to pull teeth without pain. Sounds too good to be true. You'd have to ride a train for 2 days. You don't have that kind of time, or money, or spine. Instead, you smear clove oil on your gums and wait for the pain to dull into a low, miserable throb. Sometimes, when it's quiet, you hear the echo of every bad decision your body has been forced to live through. You are 35, and it only gets weirder from here. You're 40 now, which back then might as well be 75. You're not old exactly, but your knees disagree. Your eyes don't see at night anymore, your hearing is going, and there's this rattle in your lungs that just won't quit. Some days, you cough so hard your ribs feel bruised. Other days, it feels like someone is sitting on your chest, and you try to ignore the blood on your handkerchief. You tell yourself it's just the weather. You tell yourself that a lot. Someone suggests it might be catarrh, or dropsy, or maybe miasma. That mysterious, bad air doctors are always blaming for everything from headaches to death. You open your window. The fresh air smells like horse manure, coal smoke, and wet boots. Not much improvement. A traveling physician comes to town. He arrives in a painted wagon covered in gold lettering. Dr. Augustus Bellamy, surgeon-chemist, healer of the sick, restorer of the hopeless. He wears a top hat, carries a silver-tipped cane, smells like peppermint and gin. He sets up shop in the town square, handing out vials of syrup that promise to cure everything but taxes. You buy one. Of course you do. You're desperate. You drink it slowly. It burns your throat and makes your stomach feel like it's crawling up into your lungs. But for a few hours, the coughing stops. Your heart races. Your thoughts blur. You're high. It doesn't last. The next day, you buy another bottle, then another, then 5. The local apothecary starts stocking it. People start calling it miracle elixir. The doctor leaves town with a bag full of cash and a trail of trembling addicts. You, unfortunately, are one of them. But you've got other problems. You wake up one morning and your leg is hot, not warm, hot. Angry red streaks run up your calf. Your knee is swollen. You can't bend it. You try to walk, and it feels like your bones are full of glass shards. You ask the local doctor to come see you. He does. Eventually, he pokes your leg, frowns, and tells you it's bad humors. You ask if it'll go away. He says probably not. But good news, he has a treatment. Amputation. You stare at him. He stares back. You laugh. He doesn't. You say no. He shrugs and leaves. A week later, you change your mind. You change your mind because now the smell is unbearable. Your foot has turned black. You don't need a degree to know what that means. They prep the kitchen table, boil the saw, bring the leather strap. You say goodbye to your leg and try not to think about what life looks like on the other side of this decision. They hold you down. You bite into wood. You scream until your throat tears. Then darkness. Then silence. Then pain. More pain than you thought a single person could survive. You spend weeks in bed, feverish, shaking, staring at the ceiling, and bargaining with a God you haven't prayed to in years. Somehow, you live. You're given a wooden crutch and a pat on the shoulder. You try to go back to work, but you're slower now, weaker. The world doesn't wait for broken men. You live with it. You live around it. But you do live. And in this century, that's saying something. You're 47 now, and you've officially crossed into miracle of science territory. Every time someone hears your age, they look at you the way people look at haunted houses, with a little awe, a little fear, and a lot of questions about what exactly is keeping you standing. You don't know either. It's not the food. You've been eating the same gruel, salt pork, and boiled cabbage since Jackson was in office. Your liver probably glows in the dark from all the patent medicine. Your remaining teeth, those brave little survivors, are spaced out like gravestones. You've buried 2 wives, 3 children, and 1 toe. Yes, toe. It turned black one winter and never turned back. Still, you're here. You live alone now in a 1-room cabin with a tin stove, a warped mirror, and a chamber pot that you empty into the woods once a week when the smell starts attacking your dreams. The walls are full of drafts, the floorboards are full of splinters, and your mattress is stuffed with straw that keeps leaking into your nightshirt. Your spine is a question mark. You sleep curled up like punctuation. Your joints click when you move, so you've started talking to them like old friends. Easy there, you whisper to your knees. We're just going to the stove. You don't talk to people much anymore. You used to. But they either died, moved, or stopped visiting after the 3rd or 4th time you brought up your leg stump and how it aches when the weather changes. Your leg does ache, by the way, every day. Phantom pain, they call it now. Back then, they just called it a curse. No one knows what to do for it, so you rub turpentine on it and pretend it helps. The town doctor has a new office. It smells like bleach and books and money. He wears gloves now. Big change. He also has a stethoscope, which he uses once dramatically, before prescribing the same thing every other doctor does: rest, prayer, and possibly arsenic. You decline. Politely. Instead, you visit the apothecary, who sells you something called Dr. Barnaby's Vital Elixir for Stamina, Manliness, and Nervous Conditions. It tastes like peppermint and rage. You drink it anyway. Within 10 minutes, your heart is beating like a drum solo and your ears are ringing. You lie down and stare at the ceiling while your soul tries to claw its way out through your ribcage. Later, you learn it contains strychnine. Yes, poison. A little bit of death to spice up your afternoon. Another new treatment making the rounds is trepanation. That's where they drill a hole in your skull to let the bad spirits out. You hear it's good for migraines. You also hear it's good for dying instantly. You pass. A preacher in town has started mixing religion and medicine. He says illness is sin made visible, that your leg stump is the result of moral failure. You ask if God took your toe because you swore at a goat once. He doesn't laugh. Instead, he offers to lay hands on your head and scream at the demons until they leave your body. You pass on that too. But you do go to church. Sometimes. Mostly to sit in silence and listen to the hymns. The pew is hard. Your back hates it. But the singing makes you feel like maybe, just maybe, the pain isn't everything. You think a lot about death now. Not in a scary way. More like a neighbor who keeps knocking on your door, not quite ready to come in, but close enough that you set an extra plate at dinner just in case. You don't fear it. You've seen too much to be afraid. You just hope, when it comes, It doesn't involve another saw, another bottle of mercury, or another scream. You lie in bed at night, listening to the wind press against the walls and the mice chew holes in your bread. You pull the blanket up to your chin and close your eyes. And for a while, there is peace. You're 53 now, practically immortal by 1800 standards. People nod at you in town like you're some sort of walking relic, a living cautionary tale wrapped in wool and toothaches. Children whisper about you. Adults call you tough. What they mean is, still breathing despite everything. You've been through 5 presidents, 2 wars, 7 epidemics, and 1 very memorable bout of exploding bowels thanks to a batch of spoiled molasses. Your memory isn't perfect anymore. Some days, you can't remember if you've already had breakfast. Other days, you remember in exquisite detail the time you got your arms stitched up with horsehair thread and whiskey for anesthesia. Let's talk about that for a moment. You were 31. You got kicked by a horse, split the skin open from elbow to wrist, bone showing. You didn't panic. You just tied it off with your belt and stumbled to the doctor like it was a mildly inconvenient weather event. He poured whiskey over the wound, then into your mouth, then into his. Because hey, shared experiences. He threaded a needle made from a chicken bone. The string? Real, honest horsehair, boiled if you were lucky. You weren't. You bit down on a spoon and screamed through the whole thing. It took 30 minutes. He only sewed it up crooked twice. The scar is still there. You trace it sometimes. It's a reminder that you lived, and that your immune system once stared down a pile of filth and said, "Not today." Nowadays, your stomach's a little unpredictable. Your bowels have 2 speeds, blocked like a dam or looser than a politician's morals. You try not to think about it. You eat bread that's more mold than flour, meat that's been aged on a nail by the window, and vegetables that taste like sadness. You also drink water now, boiled of course, or mixed with vinegar, or filtered through fabric that smells like your armpit, because by now, you've figured out that the water wants you dead. Bathing? Still optional. You do it once a season, maybe twice if you're feeling frisky. A full-body soak is a production, hauling water, boiling it, pouring it into a wooden tub that leaks like a politician's promise. Soap? Maybe, if you can afford it. Otherwise, it's lye and elbow grease and hoping for the best. You scrub until your skin is raw and pink and vaguely offended. Your clothes? Stiff, itchy, slightly damp even when dry. They smell like firewood, onions, and damp regret. You wear them until they fall apart, and then you sew them back together with whatever's available. Thread, twine, or the stubborn determination of someone who hasn't had new pants in 12 years. You hear about people going to health resorts now, these new sanitariums in the mountains or near mineral springs, where the wealthy pay to be wrapped in wet towels and electrocuted gently while sipping herbal tonics. You shake your head. You've been doing that for free for decades. It's called surviving winter. But the part that really gets you now? The loneliness. Most of your friends are dead. The ones who aren't can barely make it out of bed. You write letters to people who'll never write back. You sit on your porch and watch the road, hoping to see someone you know. Mostly you see dust. You don't have much to offer anymore, except stories, so you tell them. To whoever will listen. Kids, preachers, the man at the feed store. You talk about the time you were bitten by a dog and treated it with bacon grease. About the time you saw a man's arm get cut off with a carpenter's saw and then burned closed with a poker from the fire. They grimace. You smile. Because you're still here. And honestly, you're not even halfway through the worst of it. You're 60 now, which in the 1800s makes you a unicorn, a ghost, or a witch, depending on who's doing the talking. Children gawk like you're a living fossil. Strangers stop and stare. One guy even asked if he could touch your hand just to see what old feels like. You let him. His reaction was disappointing. Your hair is mostly gone. What's left has migrated. Ears, nose, eyebrows that now resemble angry caterpillars. Your skin hangs off you like it's trying to escape. Wrinkles, sunspots, scars, and one large lump on your neck that you've named Clarence. He doesn't talk. Yet. But you still get up every morning. Sort of. It takes a while. Your bones crack like dry kindling. Your spine sounds like a staircase being disassembled. You sit on the edge of the bed for 10 minutes just remembering why you sat up. You light the stove with hands that shake. You boil water for coffee you can't afford, and tea that tastes like floorboards. Breakfast is bread that could double as a murder weapon, or maybe boiled oats with some lard stirred in for flavor. That's a treat. Lard means you're eating like royalty. Your eyes don't see as far as they used to. There's a haze, a blur, a fuzziness to everything, like life has been smudged by a greasy thumb. But you can still see well enough to know your neighbors are all younger than you, by a lot. They say things like, "You're a legend," or "You've got grit." What they mean is, "I didn't think anyone could survive this long." You smile, thank them, and continue limping down the road like a cracked marionette held together by habit and spite. You visit the local doctor once every few months now. He's new, fresh from a big city, wears wire-rimmed glasses, and has soft hands that have never held a shovel. You don't trust him, but you go anyway. He listens to your heart, your lungs, and your complaints, tells you your pulse is weak and your spirit strong, offers you powdered willow bark for pain. You nod. Go home. Chew the bark. It works about as well as gnawing on disappointment. Your joints are twisted. Your knuckles look like they're arguing with each other. You used to walk straight. Now you list to one side, like a wagon wheel that's missing a few spokes. You try not to fall. Falling means broken bones. Broken bones mean bed rest. Bed rest means death. You hear stories of men your age being treated with leeches again. Yes, still. In some towns, they swear by them. A good bloodletting to balance the system. You wonder how many people have been balanced into an early grave. There's a traveling healer who comes by now and then, claims to have learned the secrets of the ancients. He sells copper bracelets, magnetic foot pads, and a bottle of something called Vita Nerve Elixir. It glows slightly in the dark. You're pretty sure that's not a good sign, but people buy it because hope has no expiration date. Your digestion has become theatrical, loud, unpredictable. You eat, then wait for the performance. Sometimes it's a slow burn. Sometimes it's a surprise exit. Either way, you don't stray too far from the outhouse. Speaking of which, outhouses, the real heroes of the 1800s, you still use the same one you built 25 years ago. It leans slightly, smells permanently cursed, and is home to 3 spiders you've named. You keep meaning to rebuild it, but you also keep meaning to rest, and that wins every time. Sometimes you dream of bathtubs with hot running water. You heard they have those in rich people's houses now. You've never seen one, but the idea alone makes your joints weep with envy. You heard about a hospital in the next town that uses chloroform now. Actual pain relief during surgery. You stare at your stump of a leg and mutter, "Must be nice," under your breath. The local preacher gave a sermon last week about aging with dignity. You fell asleep halfway through, woke up when he said, "Blessed are the meek," and asked loudly, "What's that got to do with my prostate?" They didn't invite you back, but you're still here, somehow. 60 years of blood, sweat, bone saws, leeches, lice, and pain tonics that glow in the dark. You've seen medicine evolve from bite this stick to try this syringe. You've seen death dressed up as science and hope packaged in bottles of cocaine syrup. And still, you're breathing. Barely. But it counts. You're 66 now. Your beard's gone white, your hands don't close all the way, and your lungs sound like someone stepping through snow. Every breath feels earned. Some days, they all feel borrowed. Your neighbors have started calling you the old-timer, like you're a landmark or a tree. They mean it kindly. Mostly. Children point at you like you're a story someone forgot to finish writing. They ask if you remember the old days, and you laugh. The old days are still stuck in your joints. You remember every splinter. There's talk in town of a new nerve tonic making the rounds. It comes in a green bottle, smells like varnish, and promises to cure fatigue, sadness, indigestion, arthritis, indigestion again, and female complaints, whatever that means. The label says it's made with extract of coca leaves and fortified with alcohol. You try it. It hits like lightning. For 20 glorious minutes, you feel like your spine is lined with golden thread. Your leg doesn't hurt. Your eyes sharpen. You consider chopping firewood, then laugh so hard you almost dislocate a rib. The crash is sudden and cruel. You feel like someone unplugged your soul. But it was a nice 20 minutes. That's worth something. You've started forgetting words, not big ones. Just the ones you use every day. Plate, candle, door. Sometimes your own name if you haven't said it aloud in a while. You write things down, then forget where you wrote them. People say it's your age. You say it's everything you've survived. The mercury, the bleeding, the sleepless nights, the grief. There's a new doctor in town, fresh from a school in the Northeast. He says it's senility. You want to ask if there's a cure, but he's already moved on to the next patient, a young man with coughing fits and blood in his spit. You've seen how that ends. You don't ask questions anymore. You listen. You've heard whispers of new treatments for pain, things called morphine and ether. They say they're safe. They say they work. You've been lied to before. Your vision's gone cloudy. Cataracts, they say. There's an operation for that now. A sharp blade to the eye, a steady hand, and a long prayer. You decide to pass. You've seen enough anyway. You eat when you can. Mostly broth, bread, and anything that doesn't bite back. Meat is too tough. Your gums are too soft. You once tried chewing jerky and thought your jaw was going to resign in protest. Your bladder? Let's not talk about it. You used to sleep through the night. Now it's a journey of endless half-wakes and cold floorboards. You've memorized the number of steps between your bed and the chamber pot. 14. 11 if you're rushing. The world's getting louder. Or maybe you're just more tired. Carriages clatter. Dogs bark. People argue outside your window. And you lie in bed wishing they'd all just quiet down for 5 blessed minutes. You've lost track of time. Seasons blur. You used to know the date by the smell of the dirt or the way your joints swelled. Now it all smells like smoke and aches like regret. But you're still here. still breathing, still waking up and tying what's left of your life into a knot and carrying it through the day. There's something to be said for that. You're 73 now. You don't say your age out loud anymore. People react like you've just admitted to witchcraft. You've outlived every sibling, every friend, 2 doctors, 4 horses, and at least 3 towns that were swallowed up by fire, flood, or failure. Your body has become its own kind of machine, not efficient, not sleek, but functional in the way an old wagon still limps down the road, creaking with every turn, but refusing to fall apart. You move slowly, deliberately. Everything takes time now. Tying your shoes is a project. Getting up from a chair is a negotiation. You don't bother shaving anymore. What's the point? Your face has enough lines to read like scripture. Your beard grows wild. Children say you look like Moses. You don't correct them. Most of your days are quiet, the kind of quiet that buzzes. You hear things, memories mostly. Sometimes the wind, sometimes your own bones whispering to each other. They sound tired. You don't blame them. You still have the same crutch you carved after your amputation all those decades ago. It's more worn than you are. The wood is soft now from the grip of your palm. You once carved your initials into it. You can barely read them now. The grooves have faded like everything else. People still talk about medicine, of course. They're always discovering something new, something modern, something miraculous. Electricity, radio waves, germ theory. You squint when they say that. Germs? Tiny monsters crawling around killing people? Sounds suspicious. But then again, so did the idea of bloodletting. And you remember when they used to drill into your skull to treat a headache, so maybe tiny monsters aren't the worst theory. You hear there are hospitals now with nurses, women trained to clean wounds, comfort the sick, and write down symptoms without fainting. You're both amazed and a little insulted. Back in your day, you were your own nurse, and barber, and dentist, and undertaker if things went south. You once pulled your own tooth with a pair of pliers and a shot of whiskey. You bled for an hour and saw stars. Then you walked to work the next day. You tell that story often. You think it means something. Your appetite's mostly gone. Some days you forget to eat. Other days you eat because it's something to do. Your stomach is a coward now. It can't handle spice, fat, or joy. You live off broth, soft bread, and the occasional piece of dried fruit, if your gums allow it. Sleep is different. You wake up a dozen times a night. Sometimes it's pain. Sometimes it's dreams. Sometimes it's just your body making sure you're still alive. You lie in the dark, listening to the house breathe. You think about people, mostly the ones who are gone. Sometimes you talk to them, not out loud, just in your head. They talk back, in a way. You know it's not real, but it helps. You remember the worst of it. The saws, the needles, the syrups that burned your throat and made your teeth fall out, the laughter that followed the bleeding, the screams behind doors, the cold table under your back. But you also remember hands holding yours, cloth pressed to your forehead, the soft sound of someone humming while you shook with fever. Not every healer was cruel. Not every remedy was poison. Sometimes the best medicine was kindness. You look around your room now, simple, spare, quiet. You keep a chair by the window. You sit there most afternoons, watching the trees sway, watching the road, waiting for nothing in particular. You wonder what the future holds for medicine. Maybe one day they'll stop cutting people open just to guess what's wrong. Maybe one day they'll find a way to save more than they hurt, Maybe one day, no one will die screaming on a kitchen table. You hope so. You really do. But in the meantime, you close your eyes. Let the sunlight warm your face. Let your body rest. And for now, that's enough. You're 78 now. Your body has become a whisper of what it once was. Every step feels like an argument with gravity. You've shrunk a little. Your spine has folded in on itself, like an old letter someone tried to reread too many times. You used to be tall. Now the children pat your hand like you're the one who needs comforting. Your hands shake when you hold a spoon. Your knees buckle when it rains. And your eyes water when you breathe too hard. Not because you're crying, though sometimes you do, but because they just leak now, like everything else. You don't bother locking the door anymore. Who's coming for you? Robbers. Let them try. They'll slip on the loose floorboard, knock over the chamber pot, and leave with nothing but a strong opinion on the smell of mothballs and despair. The world is changing faster than your heart can keep up. You hear people talking about germs again, only now they're washing their hands like it's some kind of religion. Imagine that. Washing your hands before touching a wound. Back in your prime, you were lucky if the saw had been rinsed after the last amputation. You remember the barber surgeon who pulled 3 teeth from the wrong side of your mouth. He had a nice mustache. That's about the only kind thing you can say about the experience. They say now that the cause of infection isn't bad luck or wickedness, but invisible specks floating in the air. You believe it. You've seen too many good people rot from a scratch to think otherwise. Your neighbor died last week, fell from a ladder, broke his hip, got gangrene, dead in 4 days. The new doctor said he tried everything, poultices, compresses, prayers. You ask if he used whiskey. He looks confused. That's when you realize this one's never done a field amputation. He's a book doctor. They keep trying to sell you new remedies, pills, powders, tinctures that smell like turpentine and cost more than your entire cabin. You nod. You smile. You give them a nickel and pour it into the fire when they leave. At your age, you've earned the right to ignore advice from people whose voices haven't cracked. You've developed a cough. Not the normal kind, the kind that rattles, shakes you like a loose window during a storm. You spit into a cloth. There's red in it. You fold the cloth and don't say a word. You've buried too many people to be afraid of blood anymore, but you are tired. Some mornings you wake up and forget that you're alive. You open your eyes expecting the dark. Then the light surprises you. The sounds of birds, wind, a rooster. You smile. And sometimes that's enough to get you out of bed. You still try to move a little every day. Walk to the edge of your land. Sit in your rocking chair. Say hello to the trees that have grown taller than you now. You talk to them like they're old friends, because they are. You've seen them sprout, grow, and stretch toward a sky that doesn't care who's watching. You think a lot about the pain, not just your own, but everyone's. The pain that was treated with fire, with steel, with prayers and lies and miracle tonics. You think about the women who died in childbirth because the doctor didn't wash his hands, about the children who burned with fever while you held a wet cloth against their heads and whispered lies like, "You'll be fine. Just rest. You'll be fine." You weren't fine, but you kept going. That's what people forget. Survival isn't triumph. It's just next. You don't expect miracles anymore, But you do believe in small mercies, a warm fire, a soft blanket, a familiar voice, the sound of rain that doesn't come with thunder. You've stopped worrying about your legacy. You are your legacy. Every scar, every wrinkle, every memory etched into the back of your eyelids like old carvings in a church pew. You lie down more often now. You fall asleep faster. You dream deeper. Sometimes the dreams are good. Sometimes you're young again. Your legs work. Your teeth are whole. Your breath doesn't rattle. And when you wake, there's a peace in that. A sadness, sure, but also peace. You survived 19th century medicine. That alone makes you a miracle. You're 82 now. You don't say much anymore. Not because there's nothing to say, but because everyone you used to say it to is gone. Your voice is still there, gravelly and worn like an old boot sole, but it only really gets used when you need to mutter to your knees, curse the wind, or tell a fire to hurry up. Talking feels like something from a younger life. Your body's more memory than muscle. Your skin is thin as paper and bruises if someone so much as looks at you too long. You wear layers now, always. Wool over linen, blanket over wool, coat over everything. The cold gets in no matter what. It settles into your bones like a tenant who knows you're too tired to kick them out. Eating has become a calculation. What won't break your teeth? What your stomach won't return with interest? You suck on biscuits softened in tea, slurp thin soup, chew on thoughts more than food. Sometimes you forget to eat until your hands start shaking. Other times, you eat just to feel something happen. You used to dread the outhouse. Now you dread the journey to it. Your knees don't bend. Your back doesn't straighten. The walk is long and the door sticks. The seat is always cold, and the spiders haven't paid rent in decades. You mutter a little prayer each time you lower yourself down, something between "don't fall" and "let this be quick." Your nights are long. They always have been. But now they're quieter. You lie in bed listening to the world breathe. The walls creak. The wind sighs. Sometimes you imagine the stars creaking too, like old rafters in the roof of heaven. Sleep doesn't come easy anymore. Your body forgets how. You lie still for hours, blinking into the dark, waiting for your thoughts to get bored and wander off. Sometimes they don't. They sit with you. Old regrets, faces, things you said wrong, things you never got to say, people who left, people you let go. Sometimes you cry, but not loud. Not because of pain. You're used to pain. It's the silence that gets to you. The weight of memory pressing into the hollows behind your ribs. There are rumors about new cures now. Pills that stop pain. Serums that chase disease. Machines that can look inside you without cutting. You nod when people talk about it, but you don't ask questions. You've known too many miracles that were just new ways to hurt people slower. Some younger folks talk about the future with a kind of glitter in their eyes. Electricity, trains, rubber gloves. You try to care. You do. But mostly you think about how long it's been since anyone asked if you were hungry or cold. Sometimes you think about the things you've survived. The saw, the syringe, the surgery on the kitchen table, the mercury for your lungs, the whiskey for your tooth, the time you bled from both ends and just didn't die. You outlasted epidemics, doctors with dirty hands, and friends who believed prayer could stitch a wound shut. Your body is a graveyard of symptoms, but your mind still flickers, dimmer now, but it's there. You remember the smell of the first frost on a log pile, the sound of rain on canvas, the way a fever breaks in the middle of the night, leaving you soaked and shivering but still alive. You remember the births and the deaths, the hands you held, the words you whispered over people who couldn't hear you anymore. You remember love, not because it saved you, but because it softened you. And now, you sit by the window most days, watch the leaves fall, watch the clouds move, watch nothing, and that's okay. There's something in the stillness, not peace exactly, but something close. And when you lie down at night, you pull the blanket to your chin, close your eyes, and say the same quiet words you've said every night since the first time you tasted blood and thought it might be your last breath. Still here. Still here. You're 86 now. The year doesn't matter to you anymore. The world ticks on, but your calendar is made of aches and seasons. You measure time by the return of the crows, the first snow, the last warmth in the floorboards. Days blur together like brushstrokes in a fading painting. You're not sure what day it is. You're not even sure what month. But you know it's morning, because the light on your window is pale and soft, and because your bones hurt a little more than usual. Your body has collapsed in on itself. You are a curled thing now, wrapped in wool, breath shallow, fingers bent like tree roots. The flesh has pulled away from your bones like it's trying to retreat. Your skin bruises like fruit. Your ribs show even through layers of flannel. You haven't been outside in days, or maybe weeks. It's hard to say. Someone brings you water, food, sometimes. A neighbor's daughter, you think, or maybe the baker's wife. She doesn't say much, just smiles. You nod. That's enough. You don't read anymore. Your eyes won't track. The words crawl around on the page like bugs. You used to love stories. Tales of faraway places, medical miracles, men who made it past 70 without losing a toe. Now the only story is the one written on your body. You think, sometimes, about all the things they did to you in the name of healing. The bleeding, the blistering, the syrups that made you see things that weren't there and forget things that were. The bone saw, the endless hands fumbling through your sickness, guessing at what might fix you, almost always making things worse. It's a wonder you survived. It's also a curse. There are moments when you wish you hadn't, not because you want to be gone, but because you've already said goodbye to everyone who ever made the living worth it. There's talk in town of a new hospital, brick walls, steam heat, real beds, people with starched aprons and soft shoes. You picture it, clean floors, white sheets, glass bottles lined on shelves, a world apart from the blood-slick kitchen tables you remember. You wonder what it would have been like to be sick in a place like that, to lie back and know the person with the scalpel had washed their hands, to be given something that dulled the pain instead of just holding someone's hand and praying you'd pass out before the cutting started. You don't envy them. Not exactly. But you do feel something. A kind of tired wishfulness. You remember your first fever. You were 12. Your mother wrapped you in damp linen and fed you onion broth and whispered, "Don't go." You didn't. You remember your first real heartbreak, your second, your fifth. You remember the day your leg came off, the pop of the bone, the heat of the fire, the way the saw jerked when it hit gristle. You remember the man who held you down sobbing harder than you were. You remember the cold baths in winter, the blisters from mustard plasters, the cough syrup that tasted like firewood and lies. You remember it all, and now you lie in bed, watching dust drift through sunlight. You listen to the house breathe. You feel the ache of life like a low hum inside your ribs. You don't talk much anymore. What's left to say? But if someone asked, if someone sat down next to you and really wanted to know, you might whisper, "It hurt, all of it, but I lived." And then you'd close your eyes, feel the blanket settle over your shoulders, and breathe as slowly and softly as the wind through a winter tree. Still here, for now. You're 89 now. No one asks your age anymore. When they do, it's more of a gasp than a question. They say things like, "No," and "surely not," and "you must be joking," but you're not. You ran out of jokes sometime in your 70s. Now you just smile politely and go back to trying to remember if you already drank the tea that's cooling beside your bed. The bed is your world now. The mattress sags in the middle like an exhausted promise, and the quilt smells like 100 winters. You sleep curled up like a question mark, knees to chest, arms folded across your belly. It's the only position that doesn't make something ache, or rather, the only position that makes the aching feel familiar enough to ignore. Your fingers are knotted. Your joints creak like old floorboards. You haven't been able to close your fists in years, not really. Your grip is gone. Holding a spoon is a gamble. So is drinking from a cup. But you do it. Slowly. Carefully. Like a prayer. You used to laugh loud. You remember that. Great, booming belly laughs. You can still feel the echo of them somewhere in your chest. Now your laugh is a wheeze, a sigh with rhythm. People mistake it for a cough. You let them. They've started sending doctors to you now. They don't expect you to get to town. They sit by your bed in polished shoes and clean collars and ask quiet, thoughtful questions. They listen to your chest, feel your pulse, nod solemnly, like they're solving a great mystery. Then they write something down and say words like remarkable and resilient. You want to tell them about the time you almost bled out from a rusty nail and the man who saved your life using beeswax, a boiled sock, and 3 fingers of bourbon. You want to ask them where that fits in their notes. But you don't. You just smile and close your eyes while they prod your ribs like you're a puzzle they'll never finish. You're not in pain, exactly. Pain implies something sharp. This is softer, heavier, like wearing a coat made of sleep. It presses into you, wraps around you. Some days, you forget what it felt like to move without feeling every inch of yourself protest. You think about death sometimes, not often. It's not fear that keeps you from it. It's just fatigue. You've spent so long staying alive, it's hard to imagine stopping. You don't want fanfare. You just want quiet. Maybe a little breeze through the window. Maybe the smell of wood smoke in the distance. You miss things. The feel of earth under your nails. The sound of a fiddle. The way soup tastes after a long day of work. You miss people. Not their names, always. You've forgotten some of those. But the feel of them. Their laughter. The way they moved. The warmth of sitting close on a cold night. You miss your legs sometimes. Even now. Phantom twinges, little reminders. The doctor says it's normal. You think it's just your body remembering the parts of you that used to hurt. There's talk of something called antiseptic now, of surgeries being performed in sterile rooms. of doctors washing their hands, wearing gloves. You chuckle when you hear that. Gloves. What luxury. You had a tooth pulled once by a man who wiped his hands on his trousers between patients. You're not bitter. You're just old. You've outlasted the bleeding, the sawing, the blistering, the doses of turpentine and syrup and soot. You've outlived the cures and the men who gave them. You are the last page of a chapter no one wants to read again. And still, here you are. You fall asleep now without ceremony. No prayers, no fear, just the slow, drifting slide into silence. The way a candle forgets it was ever fire. Still here. You're 91 now. That makes you older than most trees people bother naming. You're not just a person anymore. You're a living record. A relic. A remnant of an age people only know through whispered stories and yellowed newspaper clippings. When they visit you now, they speak slowly, softly, like you're a ghost. They don't want to startle. You don't correct them. Ghosts don't argue. Your room is quiet most days. Just the crackle of the fire, the ticking of the clock, and the occasional bird tapping on the window like it's checking if you're still around. Sometimes it feels like even the dust holds its breath when you sleep. You haven't stood up in days, maybe weeks. No one's keeping track anymore, least of all you. Your legs are more memory than limb now. There's no strength left in them, no reason to pretend otherwise. When people ask how you feel, you tell them, like bread left out too long, dry, fragile, crumbly. Sometimes you even smile when you say it, and they laugh nervously, like it's not true. Your hands have curled in on themselves. You can't hold much anymore. Not cups, not pens, not even the soft fingers that occasionally wrap around yours from someone trying to offer comfort. Your skin is paper. Your veins like blue thread. Touch feels both too much and not enough. You don't eat much now. A few spoonfuls of mashed potatoes, maybe a sip of broth. Anything more, and your stomach sends up protests like an old barn in a windstorm. You've grown used to the gnawing emptiness. It's a quiet kind of hunger, the kind that sits beside you instead of shouting. You sleep more than you wake. Sometimes 12, 14 hours, sometimes more. But even when you sleep, it's not restful. It's a kind of drifting. You dream about things you haven't seen in 70 years. Faces, sounds, smells. A field in spring. A child laughing. The feel of soap made from lye and ash. You wake up wondering if any of it was ever real. There's a new nurse now, young, kind. She holds your hand sometimes, hums when she adjusts your pillows. You think her name is Emma, or Emily, or Grace. It doesn't matter. What matters is that her voice is soft, and she doesn't flinch when you cough. Sometimes she reads to you. Medical journals, of all things. She knows your history. She finds it fascinating. You suppose it is. You, who were bled and blistered, whose leg was taken off in a barn, who drank cough syrup laced with morphine, and called it a miracle. You, who outlived half a century of guesswork and agony, disguised as care. She tells you about antibiotics, about sterile technique, about anesthesia that doesn't leave you screaming. You nod, you smile. You think about the men who died with sticks between their teeth and wonder if they'd believe any of it. Sometimes she stops reading and just sits beside you. That's your favorite part. You've stopped expecting anything. That's not sadness. It's clarity. There's no fear left. Just a kind of calm, The kind that comes when you realize you've already paid your dues. You've suffered through the worst of what medicine used to be. You've given blood to leeches, teeth to whiskey, trust to butchers, and somehow you came out the other side. Still here, still breathing, still you. There's something beautiful in that, even now. Even when everything hurts. Even when the world outside your window is faster and stranger than anything you could have imagined when you were young. You blink slowly, feel the warmth of the fire, the weight of the quilt, the soft rise and fall of your own chest. And you think, with a half smile, half sigh, you wouldn't have lasted a day. You're 93 now. No one tells you the news anymore. The newspaper shows up some mornings, folded neatly, unread. The nurse brings it in and sets it by your bedside. She used to read it to you. But lately, she just asks if you want to hear it, and you shake your head, barely moving. You don't need the news. The world outside is too loud, too fast, too far away to touch you now. You've become light as a shadow. Sometimes you feel like you're not even in your body anymore, just riding along inside it, like a passenger who forgot where they were going. You're there, but not all the way. Floating, mostly. Your voice has almost disappeared. It's a whisper of a whisper. When you speak, people lean close and smile like they're listening to poetry, even if all you said was, "More tea, please." You used to shout over storms, over saws and screams and barking dogs. Now your words barely ripple the air. It's not sad, just strange. You don't read, you don't write, you don't stand, walk, chew, or dress yourself anymore. But you remember. That's what you still have. Memories. They visit you more than people do. You remember the first time you saw blood run from your own arm in a bowl, and the man in the white apron said it would make you stronger. You believed him. What choice did you have? You remember the sharp crack of bone when your neighbor's shoulder was reset using a rock and a prayer. You remember holding someone's hand while they gave birth in a one-room cabin and screaming louder than the baby when she realized the doctor hadn't washed his hands. You remember the smell of lye soap, the taste of soot in your mouth after a fever, the burn of turpentine poured into an open wound because someone said it would cleanse the rot. You remember screaming, not just yours, everyone's. And now it's quiet. Your body still hurts, but it's the dull kind, the ache of living too long, like old rope that won't fray but won't stretch either. They've stopped giving you most of the pills. Palliative care, they call it now. They say it gently, like it's a gift. You know what it means. It means no more trying to fix you, just trying to make you comfortable. You're okay with that. You never really trusted the pills anyway. Every so often, someone visits, a grandchild of a grandniece, a curious student, a woman who says her great-grandfather knew you. They ask questions about what it was like. You try to answer. Sometimes the words come, sometimes they don't. But they always leave with the same look, that mix of awe and horror, like looking at a wolf and realizing it used to be your pet. You've become a living museum exhibit, proof of a time when medicine was more gamble than science, when a cough might mean death and the cure might kill you faster, when every scar was a story and every story began with, well, it was the best they could do. Sometimes you dream of water, cold rivers, washing the blood off your hands after helping with a birth, splashing your face in the creek during fever season. You always wake up with your hands curled like you're still wringing out a cloth. You think a lot about hands now. Hands that held yours. Hands that hurt you. Hands that saved you. Hands you held while someone slipped away. You want to say thank you to all of them. You also want to say sorry, but mostly, you just want to rest. So you close your eyes. Listen to the faint sounds around you. A kettle whistling, wind brushing the window, a clock ticking without urgency. And you let yourself drift. Because somehow, in a world that burned, cut, bled, and blistered you, you're still here, still breathing, still you. You're 96 now. You don't count in birthdays anymore. You count in seasons, in the way the wind smells different when the leaves turn, in the light through the curtains, in how many cups of warm broth it takes to make your hands stop shaking. Your name still means something to a few people, but not because they knew you, because their grandparents did, because their teacher told them about you, because you're the one who lived through it, as if that alone makes you important, as if surviving a century of bad guesses and worse medicine makes you wise. It doesn't. It just makes you tired. The nurse, yes, it's still Emma, bless her, is softer with you now. Everything she does is slower. She announces each step as she takes it. I'm lifting your leg now. This might be cold. Let me know if this hurts. You rarely respond, not because you're ignoring her, because it all hurts, and none of it matters. But she does it anyway, and you love her for it. Your skin is almost translucent. Your bones are sharp beneath it. You look like you're being slowly erased. One cheekbone at a time, one knuckle, one toe. You don't mind. You've had a long run. Sometimes you're awake when no one else is. In the early dark, before dawn, when the world holds its breath. Those are the hours when the past sneaks in. Not in memories, but in feelings. That quiet panic before the fever breaks. The ache of missing someone who's been dead longer than most people have been alive. The weird calm of knowing a storm is coming, and you can't stop it. You remember when they tried to cut the sickness out of people, not remove it, cut it out, like it was something hiding in a limb or behind a rib, and all it took was a blade and enough grit. You remember the screams, the sawdust, the blood so bright it made you dizzy. You remember being told to bite on leather, told to close your eyes and think of something pleasant, told to sit still while someone stuck a needle in your chest just to see what happens. You remember being the one who did the sticking too, when you had no choice, when there was no one else, when someone's life came down to your shaking hands and whatever was left in the bottom of the bottle. You remember failures, so many, and yet here you are. You can't explain it. You've buried people half your age, twice as strong. People who didn't drink or smoke or curse the sky. People who prayed harder, loved better. You gave up trying to understand it a long time ago. Now, when people ask what your secret is, you just say, bad aim. You sleep more than you wake now. The world fades in and out. Sometimes you dream of old cabins. Sometimes of things that never happened but feel like they could have. Sometimes of pain. Sometimes of peace. Your hearing is almost gone. Your taste too. But your heart, impossibly, keeps going. Not strong, not steady, but stubborn. Like an old mule that refuses to lie down, even when the cart is empty. You've started talking to the air again. Not out loud. Not always. But in that quiet way where you think maybe someone is listening. Maybe someone's always been listening. You tell them you're ready. not in a hurry, just ready. And if you're not gone tomorrow, that's fine too. You'll have one more cup of tea. Watch the dust dance in the light. Feel the warm hand of a nurse who calls you sweetheart and doesn't flinch when you forget her name. You'll listen to the silence, soft as cotton, and think, one last time, you wouldn't have lasted a day. You're 98 now. It takes effort to even remember that. Numbers mean less and less as the world shrinks to the size of a bed, a cup, a window. You're not sure what day it is or what season, but you can tell by the light if it's morning or evening. You can tell by your bones if it's going to rain. The window beside your bed has become your television, except instead of shows, you get birds, clouds, shadows. Every so often, someone walks by and waves. Sometimes they stop. Sometimes they don't. You don't blame them. You're not much to look at these days. Mostly bones and whispers. Your voice, when it comes, is like the wind through cracked shutters. Faint. Barely there. People lean in close just to hear you say, "Still here?" And they smile. And sometimes they cry, because they don't expect it. But you do. You've been here a long time. You know how to stay. You don't ask for much now. A warm drink, a hand to hold, a pillow that doesn't press the wrong way. You've grown fond of silence. Not the absence of noise, but the kind of stillness that feels like listening. Like the world is waiting, politely, for you to finish what you're doing, even if what you're doing is just breathing. You're mostly alone now, not out of cruelty, just logistics. Everyone who used to visit either moved away, forgot, or died. You don't hold it against them. Life goes on. You've just been going on a little longer than most people are built for. Sometimes you think about the first time you were bled, the bowl, the heat, the lightheadedness, how it felt like being punished for something you didn't do. You remember the man's voice, calm, confident, as if that made it better. You think about the time you drank a tonic so strong it peeled the inside of your throat. You survived. Of course you did. You always did. You think about the others who didn't. Your cousin, who got cholera and was buried before her feet stopped twitching. The neighbor boy who broke his arm and was dead by morning from the rot. The girl you kissed behind the barn, who bled for 9 days after a midwife made a mistake she couldn't admit. You think about how every cough used to be a maybe. Maybe it's just a cough. Maybe it's goodbye. And now you see commercials, on the rare occasion someone leaves the radio on, talking about new treatments, miracle cures, machines that see inside the body without touching it. You chuckle, when you can. Not because it's funny, because it's absurd. You lived through a century of medicine that was mostly guessing, and here they are, pretending like they've finally figured it all out. Maybe they have, but you know better than to say anything with certainty. The nurse changes your sheets gently, as if afraid you might crumble. You appreciate that. You remember when they used to grab and lift you like a sack of flour. No one had time for tenderness back then. She says you're the strongest person she's ever met. You want to tell her that strength is just what happens when dying isn't an option. But your voice won't carry that far. So you smile and nod and let her think what she wants. You don't mind being quiet now. Quiet is honest. It leaves room for the wind, the birds, the slow ticking of the clock. It leaves room for thoughts. You lie back. You close your eyes. The quilt is heavy in a comforting way, like a story being tucked around you. Still here, still you. You're 100 now. You've officially outlived every doctor who ever touched you, every man who told you the pain was in your mind, every woman who said, "Hold still, this will only take a moment," right before setting you on fire with a mustard plaster. You've become living proof of every wrong guess and half-truth that kept people alive in the 1800s, barely. They brought you a cake. It had candles, not 100, thank God. Just one flickering little flame, like a joke you were supposed to laugh at. You tried. It came out as a dry cough and a tear rolling down your cheek. Not sadness, just exhaustion. You don't eat cake. You haven't in years. Your teeth are long gone. You've got a spoon and a bowl of warm oats, and that's all your body asks for anymore. But you took a picture with the cake. The nurse said it was for the paper. You're not sure what paper. You're not even sure anyone reads papers anymore. But you smiled. Or at least you moved your lips in the shape of one. The mayor came. Said you were a treasure, a survivor. He didn't stay long. You don't blame him. There's not much of a speech to give when the guest of honor might fall asleep mid-sentence. People ask you now what your secret is. What's the key to living 100 years? You think about saying something clever, something poetic, but all you ever manage is, "Don't die." Because really, that's all it was. You didn't have clean hospitals or miracle pills. You had bleeding bowls, bone saws, and whiskey. You had people who meant well and didn't know better. You had a body that refused to give up, even when everything else did. You survived the blisters, the mercury, the amputations, the childbirths that didn't end with cries, the fevers that boiled you from the inside out, the days they put leeches on your chest and told you to thank them when you stopped coughing. You survived the war, and the next one, and the silence between them. You outlived your children, and their children. You've seen 5 generations come and go. Some never made it past teething. And now? Now you spend your days staring at the ceiling, tracking cracks like constellations. You hear the world in fragments, bits of conversation, birdsong, distant engines, the wheeze of your own breath. You don't need more than that. Pain is a constant companion. But it's quiet now. Like an old roommate who knows not to talk during the good parts of a dream. You drift in and out of sleep. You dream in sepia, faces, places, the corner of a kitchen where someone once wiped your brow and said, "You're going to be okay." You believed them. You had to. When the nurse tucks you in at night, she says, "See you in the morning." You always whisper, "Maybe." Not to scare her, just to be honest. Because every morning is a surprise now. You've stopped fearing death. You stopped a long time ago. Now it's just another visitor, one who's always late, but always polite. You don't wait for him, but you keep a chair ready, just in case. Tonight, you lie back in bed. The quilt is soft. The air smells like soap and something sweet. Apples, maybe. You feel the weight of your 100 years pressing down, not in a cruel way, but in a way that reminds you, you were here. You were here. And you made it. You close your eyes, and for a moment, there's no pain, no noise, no memory, just peace. Still here. For now. You're 102 now. No one really believes it anymore. Not the nurses, not the doctor who checks your pulse once a week, not even the young reporter who came to interview you and kept saying, "Are you sure?" Like you hadn't had over a century to think it through. But you are sure. You were there when the bleeding was fashionable, when people thought fevers needed to be sweated out in wool blankets, even in summer, when being cut open without anesthesia was just called Tuesday. You remember when someone had to invent the idea of washing hands before surgery, and even then, people rolled their eyes at it? You were there for the mustard plasters, the blister beetles, the tonics that were 90% alcohol and 10% hope. You lived through the part of history no one romanticizes in paintings. The shaking, sweating, tooth-rattling misery of a body failing, and everyone around you doing their best with whatever was in the cupboard and whatever story they'd heard from a cousin's cousin. And now you're warm. Not just because of the blankets, although there are many, but because you're finally somewhere soft. The floors are padded, the light is gentle, and the hands that touch you are gloved and kind. You've never been more comfortable. You've also never moved less. You don't open your eyes much anymore. There's not a lot left to look at. Most things are blurry, and everything important seems to come to you now. Cups of tea, warm compresses, quiet voices at your bedside that say, "Good morning," even if you're not sure it is. Sometimes you hear music playing down the hall, a radio maybe, or someone humming a hymn. You like that. You always did. Even when you were a kid and your brother played the fiddle like he was sawing through the devil's ribs. You remember him. He didn't make it past 30. You're not sad about that anymore. Not in the way people expect. There's a soft place where the grief used to be, like a patch of grass that finally grew back after a fire. You don't walk through it. You just lie there and let the wind pass over you. Sometimes you feel the wind even now, even indoors. You think it's memory, or maybe the breath of something greater, checking in. You don't try to name it. You don't name much these days. Words don't come easily. Your thoughts arrive like old dogs, slow, a little confused, but still loyal. You don't speak unless someone's really listening. And most people aren't. They're just being kind. You appreciate that. Kindness goes a long way when your body doesn't. You've stopped wondering how you lasted this long. It used to feel like defiance. Now it just feels like inertia, like the world forgot to stop you, and now you're coasting down the last part of the hill. Still here, still you. Every breath is a sentence. Every heartbeat, a punctuation mark. Sometimes a nurse will sit with you at night. She'll ask if you want to hear a story. You always nod, even if you don't understand half of it. It's not about the story. It's about the voice, the rhythm, the way the words settle into the quiet like leaves on still water. And when she finishes, she'll tuck the blanket a little tighter around your shoulders and say, "Good night." You'll whisper, "Still here." Because somehow, through blood and bone, leeches and saws, plasters and poisons, wars and winters, you are. You're 104 now. The calendar says it's spring. Or at least, that's what the nurse says as she opens the window and lets in a breeze that smells faintly of rain and soil and something like lilacs. You don't remember planting lilacs, but then again, there's a lot you don't remember. What you do remember plays on a loop, slow, grainy, and louder than anything anyone says around you. Your world is small now. Just a bed, a chair, and the corner of the sky you can see from your pillow. There's a crack in the ceiling that looks like a river. You've named it. The feather line. It's been there for years, growing slowly, like a story you can't finish. You don't talk much. Your words are stuck somewhere between your chest and your throat. The effort it takes to pull them out doesn't seem worth it anymore, unless someone really needs to hear them. Most people don't. They ask questions like, "Are you warm enough?" or "Do you need anything?" And you just blink. Because what would you even say? You've had everything and nothing. A leg taken, a dozen friends buried, 100 moments that might have been your last. You've had water from a rusty pump, morphine from a bottle with no label, and soup made from bones because the meat was gone. What else do you need? Your body's a museum now. Every joint tells a story. Your shoulder clicks when the weather changes, an old musket injury, though no one believes it anymore. Your ribs ache when it's going to snow. Your stump burns when the rain rolls in. It's like your body still wants to be useful, even if it can't stand up. You've outlived all the old diseases, the ones that swept through towns like fire and left no names behind. You've outlasted smallpox, cholera, typhoid, diphtheria, all the ghosts that used to knock on every door. You were there when people called it consumption, and when they finally gave it a name that stuck. You watched as medicine stopped being guesswork and became something more like math. You've watched the bleeding stop. You've seen surgery go from kitchen tables to operating theaters. You've watched as someone finally said, "Maybe don't cut into people without washing your hands first." You laughed when you heard that the first guy who said it was ignored. You lived long enough to see leeches come back into style. You've lived long enough for everything old to become new again. You've lived long enough to forget what it felt like to run. But remember what it felt like to want to. You're not sure if that's better or worse. The nurses come and go. They all smell like soap and kindness. That's more than you can say for most of the people who treated you back in the day. You used to scream through surgeries. Now you sleep through them. You've stopped asking what time it is. You measure your days in moments. Tea in the morning, applesauce at noon, a hand on your shoulder at dusk. Sometimes someone reads to you. You don't care what it is, just the sound of it, the rise and fall of a voice moving through the room like wind through grass. And when they leave, and the light fades, and the silence settles in again, you whisper the same thing you've whispered every night for years. Still here. Not out of pride, not out of defiance, just because it's true. Still here. Still you. You're 105 now. The number barely matters anymore. You stopped thinking in years somewhere around 95. Now you think in softer units. Sunlight, sleep, sips of warm broth, the way the sheets feel after they've been freshly changed. These are the things that measure time now. Not clocks, not calendars. Your hands don't work like they used to. They tremble when they try to hold things, even paper. But that's okay. You've let go of most things already. The past, the fear, the noise, all of it. There are only a few people left who even understand what you lived through, and most of them are strangers. Historians, journalists, a few medical students who look at you like a primary source, like a rare fossil in a museum that somehow still breathes. They ask questions about the old days, and you answer when you can, but you don't have the energy for lectures. So instead, you tell stories, little ones, fragments, about the time your fever broke just after they gave up on you, about how you once watched a doctor pour boiling water into an open wound and tell a woman it was God's will when she screamed, about the neighbor who tied garlic around his neck to keep away illness, and how, when the sickness finally took him, the garlic was still there, limp and gray, like it was sorry. You don't tell these stories for pity. or applause. You tell them because they're true, and because no one believes them unless you say them out loud. You remember the days before anesthesia was common, the days when people went to the doctor hoping to survive both the illness and the cure. You remember the endless bottles of patent medicine, syrups with names like Dr. Carter's Miracle Elixir that were mostly alcohol, opium, or things too poisonous to say out loud. You remember losing your leg. You remember the saw. You remember biting on a stick, and not because anyone said it would help, but because it gave your pain somewhere to go. Now, when the nurse trims your toenails, she apologizes if she pulls too hard, and you almost laugh. You, who once held a bleeding child in your arms while two men argued over whether or not to use gunpowder to cauterize the wound. You, who once watched a man drill into someone's skull with a hand-cranked auger and then call it a success because the patient lived another day. No one asks how you feel anymore. Not really. They ask if you're comfortable, if you're in pain, if you want the fan on or off. But they don't ask about the weight you still carry, the things you've seen, the sounds you still hear sometimes in your dreams. You don't blame them. It's not their fault. They live in a world where suffering is something to be fixed, not something to survive. But you know better. You lived in a world where the bleeding was supposed to help, where pus was considered a good sign, where you measured recovery by how long someone could scream before they passed out. You lived through the years when medicine wasn't healing, it was bargaining, and still, you're here. Some days you wonder if your body just forgot how to stop, if it got so used to pushing through agony that it doesn't know how to rest. Even now, even after everything, you don't fear death. You haven't in a long time. What you fear is forgetting who you were, what it meant to survive all of it. But every time you open your eyes, every time you whisper, every time someone calls your name and you still know it's yours, you remember, still here, still you. You're 106 now. At this point, you're more myth than person to some people. The new nurses speak your name like it's a riddle. They whisper, thinking you can't hear them. You can, just not all the time. Your hearing works in strange fits and starts, sometimes silence, sometimes sharp as a pinprick. You don't correct them. You haven't corrected anyone in years. You've outlived your doctors, your midwives, your neighbors, your enemies. You've outlived every man who bled you, and every woman who wrapped you in boiling wool blankets and prayed you'd sweat out the demons. You've outlived every textbook that once said fevers were best treated with vinegar, and every bottle that once said, shake well and ignore the taste. You never ignored the taste. It stayed with you. Bitterness, iron, burnt sweetness, the flavor of false hope and desperation. Your dreams have changed. You used to dream of people. Now you dream of moments. The click of a latch, the rattle of a wagon wheel, the way the sky turned green before the storm came, the heat from a body next to yours when you thought you might not make it through the night. You don't remember faces clearly anymore, just hands, voices, the pressure of a grip, the way someone looked at you before saying something that would change your life or end someone else's. Most of your memories come with pain, not because they were bad, but because they were real. You remember the cold wooden floor of the infirmary, the ache in your back from bending over someone else's wound while your own ribs screamed. You remember holding cloths to someone's head and hoping their fever didn't mean death, and if it did, that it would be fast. Sometimes you wonder if the pain is what kept you anchored to this world, like it refused to let you go. Now the pain is duller, quieter. It hums, like an old friend snoring softly in the corner. You've become something ancient, not revered, just noticed, like an old tree that people point at and say, "It's still standing," without understanding what storms you've held back. You used to cry, sometimes, when the memories came too fast or the names came back too sharp. Now, you just breathe through them. Let them pass like a cloud across your face. You don't fight anymore. Not sleep, not forgetting, not the gentle erosion of your body. You don't see it as giving up. You see it as making peace. The nurse today held your hand for a while. She didn't say anything, just sat beside you. You liked that. You've had 100 years of words. Sometimes what you want is the space between them. She tucked you in and asked, "Do you want anything else?" You whispered, "Nothing left." She smiled, thought you meant the water or the blanket. But you didn't. You meant the rest of it. You've been cut, burned, blistered, drained, wrapped, dunked, pinched, and prescribed everything from powdered toad to turpentine. You've seen lives end on blood-streaked tables and lives begin in dirt-floored rooms lit by lanterns and hope. You've done things you're proud of, and things you've never told a soul. And still, here you are, breathing, softly, slowly, a living footnote to a chapter no one reads anymore. But you remember, still here, still you. You're 107 now. You don't say much anymore, not because you don't want to, but because it feels like everything you've needed to say has already been said, whispered, screamed, or forgotten by someone who didn't write it down. That's the curse of living this long. Your memories become private folklore. Your body, a quiet museum of pain, patched together with time and sheer stubbornness. You've become weathered. People still come to see you, not out of obligation anymore, but curiosity. One of the nurses brought in her daughter, called you living history. The girl stared at you like you might start glowing or float off the bed. You didn't. You blinked once, then fell asleep. It's strange being a relic. You've heard them talk in the hallway. "She was born before the electric chair," one said. "Before antiseptic surgery," said another. "Before germ theory was widely accepted," added a third, sounding proud just to know the words. You lay there listening, your lungs puffing like bellows from a half-dead forge, and thought, yes, I lived before knowledge. Not before people thought they knew, but before they really did. You remember when doctor just meant someone with a sharp knife and a calm voice, when people prayed harder for good weather than good health, when everything hurt and most things killed you, and if they didn't, well, that just meant they had another chance to try again. You remember when being sick meant laying still and waiting to see which way the scale would tip, life or not life. You remember mothers with no milk, children with no warmth, men who swore the cure was worse than the wound, and they were usually right. You remember being both patient and practitioner, holding someone's head in your lap while they died, then cleaning the room for the next one. You remember boiling bandages in a pot used for stew the day before. You remember using every ounce of your body to scream at someone not to drink the tonic that turned out to be mostly mercury. You also remember surviving. You remember the rush of breath when the fever broke, the days you walked again when they said you never would, the look on a woman's face when her child cried for the first time, the joy of something simple going right, even when nothing else did. Now, your days are measured in heartbeats, soft touches, the scent of hand lotion and hospital sheets. The nurse reads to you sometimes. You don't care what it is. Just the rhythm of words fills the hollow spaces inside your chest, like warm wind through an empty house. You don't pretend anymore, not to be stronger, not to be cheerful, not to be anything other than what you are, still breathing, still remembering, still here. The doctor comes in once a month now, listens to your chest, nods, writes something down, says, "Amazing." You used to ask what he meant. Now you just close your eyes and float away from the question. There's not much left you want. Not things, not explanations, not even closure. You just want to keep hearing the wind outside, the clink of spoons, the sound of someone's slippers on the linoleum floor. You want to feel like something is still happening, even if you're no longer the one it's happening to. The nurse kisses your forehead before she leaves tonight. "See you tomorrow," she says, like it's a promise. You smile, faint as breath. Maybe. Still here, still you. You're 108 now. You've been alive so long that time doesn't feel like a straight line anymore. It bends, folds, doubles back on itself. Some mornings you're 22 again, holding a soaked cloth to someone's forehead while thunder rattles the windows. Other mornings, you're a child being told to stay quiet while the doctor saws through the neighbor's leg in the next room. And then sometimes you're just now. In this bed, in this room, watching the dust float through a shaft of sunlight like it has all the time in the world. Which, to be fair, it does. You're the one running out. The nurses don't ask you questions much anymore. Not the deep ones, anyway. What's left to ask? You've already told them about the bloodletting, the blistering, the burning, the leeches, the turpentine enemas. You've told them about the time they tried to drain your lung with a metal straw and no anesthesia. About the girl who bled for 3 days after being treated with something they swore was gentler than arsenic. She didn't make it. You did. You always did. That's the whole story, really. You made it. Through all of it. Through a century where pain was expected and relief was a rumor. Through decades of people trying to help you with things that only made you worse. Through the long nights of fever and shaking and prayers that sounded more like begging. You kept waking up, and so here you are, wrapped in fleece, too tired to hold a spoon, too thin to sit up on your own, too stubborn to go just yet. You don't know why you're still alive. You stopped knowing years ago. But every time your eyes open, you nod to the ceiling like it's an old friend checking in. Still here? Still you. A nurse brushes your hair. It's white, wispy, more memory than substance. She hums while she works. A song you don't know. A song you'll never know. That used to frustrate you, not knowing. Now it feels freeing. You don't need to remember everything anymore. You've remembered enough. You remember the days when people believed diseases came from bad air, or sin, or thinking too much. You remember being treated like a puzzle no one could solve. You remember holding someone's hand as they screamed until their voice gave out, and then being told it was natural. You remember all the ways the body can be punished in the name of healing. But you also remember the first time someone brought you a glass of water without asking anything in return. The first time someone said, "You're safe now," and actually meant it. The first time you looked down at your scarred hands and realized they weren't dirty. They were proof. Proof that you had been through things no one else could carry. And still, you carry them. You sleep more now. Sometimes for hours. Sometimes for a whole day. They check your pulse when you don't move. One nurse cried once, thinking you were gone. When you opened your eyes, she gasped and laughed and wiped her face with her sleeve. You didn't laugh, but you did smile, because you understood. You're not afraid. Haven't been in a long time. You're just tired. Not in a tragic way. In the way a candle burns low and soft and golden, even at the very end. There's nothing dramatic about it. Just breathe. Just stillness. Just the soft hum of life holding on. Still here. Still you. You're 109 now. That sentence feels made up, even to you. A number someone said out loud once and just kept repeating. You don't feel like a number. You feel like a whisper in a hallway. A flickering oil lamp in a world full of LED lights. You don't shine as bright as you used to, but you still glow. Faintly, quietly, persistently. They don't bring you newspapers anymore. Not because you can't read, but because the news feels less and less real. Presidents come and go. Wars start and end. Medicines are approved and recalled. But you just keep sipping broth and blinking at the ceiling. You're not part of the conversation anymore. You're a punctuation mark at the end of a very long, very strange sentence. Some medical student visited you last week. She was kind, nervous, asked if she could interview you for a paper she was writing. You said yes, even though your voice came out slow and dry, like a page turning in a damp basement. She asked what it was like living through the old medicine, the real bad stuff. And you just looked at her. Because how do you explain it? How do you explain being blistered for a cough? How do you explain being prescribed arsenic for fatigue? How do you explain a world where a man could reach into your body with bare hands and call it healing? You tried. You told her about the bleeding, the boiled instruments, the beds made of straw and sweat, the screams that weren't even considered remarkable, just background noise in a life where pain was a daily visitor. She cried. You didn't. Not out of hardness, just out of habit. You haven't cried in years. You've run out of the kind of tears that come from fear or pain. Now, the only tears you have are the ones that leak out when you're sleeping and dreaming of something you've lost, like the smell of wood smoke, or the sound of your mother's voice, calling you in for supper from the field, or the taste of well water on a hot day when you weren't sure if you'd make it to 20, let alone 109. You don't tell people you're tired anymore. They know. They can see it in the way your eyelids droop, in the way you move like you're underwater, each motion careful, deliberate, slow. They bring you soft foods, purees, puddings, tea that tastes more like warmth than flavor. You don't mind. You haven't been hungry in a long time. You eat now because someone asks you to, because you know it makes them feel like they're helping. You let them help. It's one of the only things left you can give. They ask if you want music. Sometimes, yes, but only the kind without words. Words are too heavy now, too full. They drag on you. You prefer violins, or a soft hum, or even silence. Silence doesn't ask anything of you. Sometimes, in the silence, you remember things you didn't know you still had. The texture of old cloth, the way a wooden bench felt against your thighs, the sound of horses outside a clinic, restless and sweating in the heat. You remember the moment you first thought you might actually live. It was after a surgery done by candlelight. The doctor had been drunk. The tools weren't clean, but something in you, some stubborn little ember, had refused to go out. And when you woke up the next day, sore and soaked in your own blood, you thought, I'm still here. That ember never left. It's dim now, just a coal, but it's there. It glows every time someone says your name, every time someone touches your hand, every time someone leans down and says, I'm glad you're still with us, still here, still you. You're 110 now. It's hard to even picture that, isn't it? 110. People say it like it's an achievement, like you won something, a medal, a record, a headline. You didn't win anything. You just kept waking up, day after day, breath after breath, long after everyone else went home. Some days, you forget how old you are, not in the way people forget birthdays, but in the way trees forget how many rings are inside them. You stopped counting a long time ago. It doesn't matter now. They still ask, though. Strangers, nurses, young doctors with perfect teeth and gentle voices. How did you make it this far? You never know how to answer. There's no secret, no special diet, no ancient ritual. You just endured. You endured the coughs, the fevers, the boils. You endured the days when you were told to pray instead of take medicine. You endured the nights when you were sure you wouldn't live to see the sun, but did anyway. You endured treatments that should have killed you, treatments that did kill others. You endured doctors who guessed, and some who didn't even guess, just hoped. And now? Now you're tired, not sad, not frightened, just tired. The world outside keeps spinning faster. Machines beep and hum. People speak in abbreviations. Medications come in blister packs. You take them when they're handed to you, even though you can't pronounce them. The bottles have long, important names and promises printed in tiny type. You don't believe in promises anymore, but you take them anyway. Someone brushes your hair today. It's more scalp than hair, but they still do it gently, like it matters. And you know, in a small way, it does. Not for you, maybe, but for them. It means they're treating you like you're still human, still a person. You hold on to that. There's a photo on the table near your bed. You don't know who put it there. It's an old black and white portrait, faded, cracked. You recognize the face. Barely. It's yours. You must have been in your 20s, maybe younger. You stare at it for a long time. It doesn't feel like looking in a mirror. It feels like looking at someone else entirely. Someone naive. Someone unscarred. Someone who hadn't yet been cut open by a man with a saw and no anesthesia. Someone who still believed in remedies. You want to reach out and touch that face, tell them what's coming, what they'll survive. But you can't. You can barely lift your hand. And even if you could, they wouldn't listen. No one listens at that age. So instead, you close your eyes. You listen to your breath, to the soft shuffling of nurses, to the creak of the radiator and the far-off clatter of a meal cart rolling down the hallway. The world hasn't gone silent yet. Not entirely. And as long as it hasn't, you're still here. You dream more than you're awake now. Dreams of rain, of dogs barking, of warm bread, of someone sitting beside you and reading in a voice you loved. You don't remember whose voice, but the feeling is still there. That's what you've learned. Feelings stay, even when faces fade. You've forgotten more names than most people ever learn. But the pain, the love, the tiny flashes of joy and terror and peace, those don't go. Those stay stitched to your bones like thread. There's no ceremony to this, no music, no last speech. There's just another night, another blanket, another breath, still here, still you. You're 111 now. The bed feels larger than it used to, not because it's grown, but because you've shrunk. Bit by bit, inch by inch, the world has pulled you inward, folding you into yourself like paper soft from handling. Your skin, once calloused and scraped and bruised from work and war and worry, now tears like rice paper. They touch you gently now, as if afraid you might blow away. You used to laugh louder. You used to cry harder. Now your emotions live under a thick blanket, there but muffled. You still feel them, but they don't rise like they used to. They hum. They press. They float. You watch the shadows on the wall in the afternoon light. They stretch slowly, like they're trying to remember something. You relate to that. You spend most of your days trying to remember. Today, you remembered the smell of iodine, the way it clung to everything, the way it stung, how it meant someone was hurt, but someone was also trying. You remembered the shaking hands of a woman trying to sew stitches with a needle too thick, in light too dim. You remembered her tears, and how she finished anyway. You remembered being held down by 3 people while the bone was set. You remembered the crack, the scream, and the long silence that followed. You remembered how pain could be so loud that it emptied your mind. Now everything is quiet. The loudest thing in your world is your heartbeat, or the heater, or the nurse's shoes. You don't fight sleep anymore. You used to. You used to think sleeping meant losing time. Now, it's a gift. A soft door into a world where your legs still work, your mouth still forms full sentences, your back isn't a map of every year you've survived. In your dreams, you're strong again. You lift buckets. You haul blankets. You bend and twist and run. You open doors and close them again. You carry things. Important things. People. You wake up and try to hold on to the feeling. It slips through your fingers like cold water. The nurse brings you a warm cloth for your face. She says it's Wednesday. You nod. She could have said Sunday. You'd nod either way. She smiles and says, "You're still going." You smile back and say nothing. Because yes, you are. You don't remember the last time you sat outside. The sun touches you through glass now. That's enough. You feel the warmth. You see the light. You don't need the full sky, just a sliver of it. There's a bird that visits the window sometimes. A small thing, blue and twitchy. You don't know its name, but you've come to expect it. You wait for it. It's good to have something to wait for. You don't have any teeth left. You barely eat. You live on applesauce and broth and little sips of water thickened so you don't choke. You used to feast. You used to rip bread with your hands and eat meat off the bone. Now your meals come with a spoon and a caution. You accept it. Because what else is there to do? This is what it means to be old. Not just old. Historic. You are older than flight, than cars, than vaccines that work. You are older than the first man who figured out why people died when doctors didn't wash their hands. You are older than modern medicine. And yet, here you are, outliving your era, your peers, even your pain. Still here, still you. You're 112 now, and by now you've become a rumor with a pulse. The new nurse, fresh-faced, full of nerves, probably barely 23, stood in the doorway this morning and just stared, like she was looking at something she couldn't quite believe was real. Maybe she expected you to look older, or less alive, or more like a mummy in a museum. You just blinked and went back to watching the ceiling crack drift ever so slightly across the plaster, one flake at a time. She'll learn. They all do. The truth is, you don't feel 112. You don't feel anything consistently. Sometimes your mind is razor sharp, slicing through memories like it's 1875 again, and someone's screaming in the barn because the doctor's pulling a tooth with a rusted pair of pliers. Other times, you drift, not asleep, not awake, just floating somewhere between here and whatever comes after. And still, you wake up. Still, you breathe. Still, they keep checking on you like they expect you to stop any second now. They peek in with soft footsteps and softer voices, as though being loud might break you. They whisper, "She's still with us." And yes, you are, but not for them. For you. You've seen too many people come and go to be impressed by the passing of time. The world has changed so fast around you that it's almost comical. You've gone from being bled for fevers to being scanned by machines that beep and blink and talk in a language made of numbers. You've been alive longer than penicillin, longer than X-rays, longer than anesthesia that actually works. You remember when being put under meant a bottle of whiskey and a wooden spoon to bite down on, if you were lucky. You remember when surgery was done in someone's kitchen, and afterwards, people lit candles, not to pray for healing, but because the oil lamps made the flies worse. You remember when you had to boil your own water before using it to clean a wound. Now, someone washes your face with rose-scented wipes and tells you you're doing great just for sitting up. You don't correct them. Let them believe it's a miracle. Maybe it is. The truth is, the hardest part of living this long isn't the pain. It's the remembering, the weight of everything you've seen, the faces that come back in dreams, the sounds you still hear, the hiss of a hot iron, the crunch of bone, the soft gasping of someone who won't make it through the night. They're not haunting you. They're just present. Like the old smell of burnt herbs and blood in a room long since scrubbed clean. You've come to accept the slow fade of your senses. Your hearing is patchy. Your eyes see more blur than shape. Your hands tremble even when they're empty. But inside, somewhere under the skin and scars and time, you're still you. You're still the girl who survived the fever. The one who lost her leg and didn't die from it. The one who watched medical fads come and go and knew better than to trust anything that came in a bottle with a fancy label. You've outlived every man who told you, "This won't hurt a bit." Liars, all of them. But you forgive them. Eventually. The world meant well. It just didn't know better yet. Now, as the nurse rubs lotion into your arms and hums some song you don't recognize, you close your eyes and feel something soft spread through your chest. Not joy, exactly. Not sorrow either. Peace. The kind that only comes when you've lived long enough to let go of needing to understand everything. Still here. Still you. You're 113 now. You don't even react when they say it out loud anymore. 113. As if you're a lottery number someone pulled out of a spinning drum. Lucky old girl, they say, like you haven't been dragged behind the horse cart of history by your fingernails. Like you haven't been cut, stitched, boiled, bled, wrapped in alcohol-soaked bandages, buried under poultices that smelled like wet socks and dead herbs. Like you lucked your way here. You didn't. You endured. The new intern came in this morning, clipboard in hand, cheeks still full of baby fat, asking questions like he was taking a survey. "Do you remember your first medical experience?" he asked. You looked him straight in the eye and said, "Yeah, it involved maggots." He didn't know what to do with that. Good. Let them learn the hard way. You remember that day. You were 7. You fell into a pile of rusted tools and tore open your shin on a blade nobody remembered owning. They packed the wound with moss and tied it with twine. Days later, it started to rot. The village healer said it was festering with the devil's heat. Your aunt said to let nature do her work. You were too tired to argue with either of them. Then the maggots came, and you got better. Not because of the healer, not because of your aunt, not because of prayer, because of bugs. The irony of it still makes you smile sometimes. All the bleeding, all the sulfur smoke, all the prayers over steaming pots of herbs, and what saved you was something that chewed on you for breakfast. You never told the intern that part. Let him earn it. They've started bringing you softer clothes. Everything is fleece now. No buttons. Just soft layers and stretchy sleeves. They dress you like a gentle secret no one wants to break. Some days you just stare at your hands. The bones feel closer to the surface now. The skin is thin as onion paper. You used to thread needles with those hands. Pull thorns. Crack bones back into place. Stir tonic until it boiled thick and black. Now they shake when you try to lift a spoon. It doesn't frustrate you like it used to. You're past frustration. This is just how it is now. You still dream, though. Sometimes you dream of smoke. Thick, sweet, stinging your eyes. Not fire, sage, or something like it. A ritual, a cleansing. You're not sure which culture it was. You lived near so many, traded with some, feared others, loved one. He smelled like cedar and sweat and something that isn't made anymore. He called you bright flame. You called him liar the first time he said he'd come back. He never did. But not because he lied. Because war has a way of finishing things without asking first. You remember the sound of horses that night. The low roar of fire eating dry wood. The screaming. You don't know if it was theirs or yours. You survived that too. Because of course you did. It's strange to live this long and still have your body hold on to memories you didn't mean to keep. You'll forget what day it is, but your shoulders will tense when someone lights a candle. You'll forget your nurse's name, but your skin will go cold at the sound of a metal tray being set down too hard. You are a story no one asked to hear, but they should. Not because it's inspiring, but because it's true. You're not here to be admired. You're here because nothing that was thrown at you managed to stick. Still here, still you.